So this weekend, as you might have saw, I went on a trip up to Huntsville to the old train station, or the Southern Train Depot as it's called. This is the oldest train depot in Alabama, and in fact it's actually one of the oldest train depots in America that's still standing, it's still original. Took some pictures as per always. Not too bad. There's 174 pictures that I took. Now, not all of these pictures are from the train depot. I did go next door to... oh, what was next door? It was the War Memorial, Huntsville's War Memorial, and took some pictures there as well. But most of them are from the train depot. So let's get to it and start editing some pictures. So here's the first one we've got. These are behind plexiglass. You can see from some of the reflections here. And these, when they took down the wallpaper, they came across the original walls. This is a dove that somebody graffitied on. The whole walls of all the building are apparently have graffiti on them, and some of them date back to when the train depot was originally opened back in the I think it was 1890s. Now some of these drawings, or some of the graffiti and drawings I suppose, are actually really faint. This ISO 100 f2.8, so I'm wide open at this point, trying to get as much light as I can in. It's dark, so we're only at 1/6 of a second, but as you can see it's sharp. Let's see if we can actually bring it out. If we increase the clarity, we're getting the lines out of the drawing, but we're also increasing the reflections. To increase the contrast a bit, we'll take down the highlights just a tad. The histogram on this is actually really good. It's a little bit centered, could do with a little bit more. To get it to the right, you just increase your exposure. That to me is overexposed. It's a really nice exposure, but we're banging up the clarity here to bring out the drawing. And if we hit down on the dehaze, which gets rid of the shine from the plexiglass, there you go, you can see it standing out. Now in doing that, I've made it a little bit dark, so we'll bring back the highlights. We'll bring up the shadows a tad, and we probably want to make this just a smidge warmer. No, too much. To right about there. And there we go, you can see the drawing. This is one of the earlier drawings. So we're happy with that. Export that one. And on to number 2. These are letters. Can't see a date on them. There we go, from May 18th, 1862. And that actually looks like Knoxville. So we'll fit that back out. Yeah, it's old letters, but meh, not that interesting. 28. Not sure what that is. Looks like some sort of date. Let's bang up the clarity on this. And ooh, come back instantly. Let's hit the dehaze to bring it out. That looks like September 28th. Can't make out this. September 28th, some point. Something man. And that looks like it might be some part of a drawing. I'm not sure what. So we'll move on. There's the September 28th. I can't read that. Something man. So December 19th, 1912. Huntsville, Alabama. Something. Somebody's signature. Now this one might not come back because there is too much reflection in the glass. Yeah, there's just too much reflection. It's not an original Civil War uniform. This is actually a replica. The gun, however, is... I can't remember if the sword was or not. But the hat and the coat, the hat and the jacket aren't. They're replicas. Again, too much reflection. Let's bang up dehaze, and we're actually getting a reflection of this. There's the signature from 1912. Blank, etc. This is the room that was used as basically a prison. Prisoners of war from the Civil War. There was 90 people holed up in this room. And this is the signature of one of the prisoners from 1898. This was an actual Sam Sheet was an actual prisoner of war in the Civil War, holed up here in Huntsville in this room in 1898. So it's interesting when you get the backstory to it, and photographs should tell a story. But if you didn't know the story, all you'd be looking at is a really old signature. But now you do know the story. So it does make it slightly more interesting. Lots and lots of reflection from this plexiglass. Circular polarizer filters are what you need. Just another angle of the same. I was trying to get rid of the glare, but actually made it worse. Picture out the second, no, this must be the third floor window of the awning. This is the original awning. This building isn't. This is a new building. I think this one was original, this is new. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe this was original and this one's new. One of them's original, one of them's new. This is the original awning from the 1890s. The railway tracks. And you can't really see it, but this inside one right here still gets used, I think. Oh, no, I just want to fit it back in. So it's a bit on the light side. I was taken for indoors, which is why my ISO is up to 3200. And look at that, 1/8000th of a second. I'm maxing out the camera at this point. So I could actually do with taking the exposure down. Bring in the clarity, and there's a fairly nice picture. It's maybe a little bit since I bumped the dehaze. There you go, a nice picture of the basically the awning. More signatures. This one's from March 9th, 1905. April 23rd, 1890. So this would be somebody else that was a prisoner of war. I can't read the signature. Somebody else that was a prisoner of war during the Civil War. The North took over Huntsville in a surprise attack. 57, I take it it's 1937, but it was 1909, so this would have been after the war ended. 1902, March 9th. So these people, long dead, it would be 120 close on, but they're now totally memorialized from the graffiti on the walls. Not that I'm saying to go out and graffiti, it's just, it's more signatures. I've already got a signature, so I'm not going to play about with those. Some old documents. I'm up F7.1. Can't really read the writing. I hate cursive writing, can't really read it for the most part. A telegraph. I don't know if it's telegraphed to this person or this person sent the telegraph. As you can see, there's not actually very much information except for this. Enslaved nursemaid. The rest of this collection, there's nothing telling you what it's actually about. An old, I'm going to assume an old Bible. It's an old Bible. Dating from, and of course it's blurred at the top. A really old telegraph. Does this one have a date on it? May 1863, May 3rd, 1863. So there's a telegram from 1863. That's interesting. Don't really need to bump the vibrance whatever that much on this one. It's a little bit on the warm side, so let's take it down a touch. Maybe a bit too much there. Bring it out a bit. So there we go. A telegram. '19th something. 19th Alabama Regiment, actually, that looks like. Lieutenant Colonel Ed something, 19th Alabama Regiment. (1861), something the 12th, 1861. So that Provisional Army of the Service of the Confederate States, that is probably who this person was then. Some really old photographs, pictures, and you'll notice in these old pictures the photographer actually puts his details on the picture. This one is from Pennsylvania, MPA? No, Macon, Georgia. So this is something that they used to do with really old pictures. The photographer would actually put his details at the bottom of the picture, so other people would see it, and that's how they drummed up business back then. It's not like they had an internet. Old silver spoon. This is the display case with photographs. Yeah, they're really old items, but just not. So here's the military men of Huntsville. Let's get rid, or try and get rid of this glare. This is fine. Here we're starting to creep in glare. This window here is just so much glare coming in from the outside. And dehazing it doesn't help. Oh well. Once the tour had finished, this is Confederate war hats and buckles and stuff. Once the tour was finished, I had a whole 15 minutes to go through the building and actually take pictures. Wasn't long at all. And during that time I was taking video as well. This is Colonel Egbert Jones, commander of the 4th Alabama Infantry, who died of his wounds at Maple Hill in Huntsville. This is old medical equipment. Surgeons carried their supplies. So this is Civil War era medical equipment. Quite interesting. Let's see if we can. Let's see, we don't want to dehaze it that much because we need to bring in the shadows. We actually need to bring in the clarity. So we can do this. This is why you shoot RAW and you don't shoot JPEG. You can bring back so much in RAW that you really just couldn't do this in JPEG. I mean, look at that. I'm at shadows of 79. You can't do that in a JPEG picture. Highlights of a -100 to try and get rid of the glare. employees only. This is an old car, essentially. I don't see an engine, so actually no, it's probably not a car. This is a horse-drawn cart. Carriage, cart, carriage. I don't know. You tell me what's right. There we go. It's terribly backlit. So we're going to pump up the shadows again. Get a smidge of colour in here. And let's see how... Now the dehaze will make it darker. So gotta watch this. But it does bring it out. And now I can actually... There we go. I'm blowing out the window in the back. Don't care. That's not the focus. The focus is the cart. This is the steps up to the 3rd floor. I'm not sure why that's so grainy. But look at the tilt in them. These are the original steps from 1890s, 1860s. There's a signature saying 1860s, which means the building would be 1860s. But yeah, the only reason I took that was to show the warp in the staircase. Old fireplace. I like the symmetry in this, all except for this hanging on the wall. It's straight, fireplace, bang center. I like the symmetry. It's not a particularly overly interesting picture. And there's really not a lot there except the old iron fireplace. A couple of maps. This is a map showing the actual route. It's actually quite sharp. From Memphis all the way to... This is going to Chattanooga, so this isn't the full route. Florence. This will be Huntsville over here then, if that's Florence. Corinth. So this is just the northern half. But anyway, I just like this picture because of the symmetry. Need to bring up the shadows so we can see the fireplace. And with the light coming in, I like that picture. That's a nice picture. This was an old inspector's, I don't know what you call it, a trolley or whatever. The inspector would sit here, pump away on this to get the cart moving. This one only had 3 wheels, so that if you met an oncoming train, you could basically just pop it off. But also this 3rd wheel was, back then there wasn't a standard gauge for train tracks. There was something like 8 different widths of train tracks, so this 3rd wheel was actually movable so that the inspector could go on any part of the line, so to speak. That's an okay picture. It's not overly impressive, but it does convey some of the old equipment that people actually used on the railways. Probably increase exposure a tad and increase the shadows. There we go. actually feel that it's overexposed now. I like that better. I like that better. This is an old cotton. Oh no, what did he call it? It's what's used to separate the cotton seeds from the actual cotton. And the camera metering is obviously taken from the window because the whole room's in darkness. So rather than just bump the shadows, let's bump the exposure. The window will get terribly overexposed, but since the window isn't the focus, we can now bring back the highlights and you can actually see through it. Look at the amount of information retained in that. You can actually see what's outside now. Completely whited out. Now you can see through the window. And it allows us to increase our exposure. Look at that, 3 whole stops. The metering got wrong. You don't want to add too much clarity because we've actually bumped this. 3-stop bump is a lot. Now the picture's just a smidge on the warm side, so let's cool it a bit. Probably to about there. And now you can see the cotton, whatever it is. This was a cotton pool or something that tested the strength of the cotton. This is the byproducts of the seeds. There was an oil and the actual cotton and a couple of other things. But cotton, if you don't know, it is or was, probably still is, one of the biggest exports from Alabama. It definitely was back during the Civil War era. In fact, the whole of the South. This is a cotton bag, a standard bag that people would use when they picked cotton. And I think this was just a furrow that they used to plant it, to rake the fields. Now what was also in this room, and I'm sure I got a picture of it, maybe I didn't. There was a 500-pound bale of cotton. Damn, I'm sure I got a picture of that. So here's a reflection of me taking the picture of the Strasbourg Railway. And there's me thinking Strasbourg was in Germany. Another picture of me with my Canon 1DX. You can see it fairly clearly. Taking this. So this is a old gas pump. Let's see if I got it from a different angle. There you go, American Gas. And here are the numbers. You pumped 0 gallons, 1 gallon, 2 gallon, etc. You pumped the fuel in. Once the fuel was pumped in, you took the hose, put it in your vehicle, or if you're filling up a bottle or whatever, and just let gravity do the work. Not exactly very efficient, but it worked. Now, which angle do I like better? Should be able to see the numbers from here. You can. But this one, I need to get rid of this door. There we go. the shadows, down the highlights, smidge more colour into it. Dehaze it a touch. And we can actually increase the exposure a bit. There's a very early gas pump. Export, export. So here's some old rail tickets, 1928, 27, 1916. They're fairly interesting. We're going to need the clarity on this one, and the highlights bumped down, in with the shadows a bit. We're going to need to dehaze it to try and get rid of some of the glare of the plexiglass case. How far can we dehaze it? It's a little bit too far, to about there, and then we might be able to bring in the exposure a tad, maybe bump up the highlights. So there we go, 1918, 1916. I think 1916 was the earliest one. And here's some more dating back to the 1800s. Knoxville, Cumberland in Louisville, the Western Alabama Line, Atlanta, Atlantic, Danville Railway, Memphis to Charleston. This is the whole line. The whole line went from Memphis all the way to Charleston. At one point, this was the longest railway in the world. Obviously not anymore. But back in the late 1800s, Memphis to Charleston line was the longest railway line, not only in America but in the world. Or at least that's what we got told. Whether that's actually true or not, I didn't research it any further. Excuse me. A magazine or a book from 1913. And here's basically what's in a copy of that book. Some of the facts and figures. Now this was interesting, that Montesano, let's see if we got the top shot of this, yeah. Back during the Civil War, back in the 1890s, 1880s, whatever, yellow fever was rife in America. Huntsville was actually considered by the medical office to be one of the safest places in America to live. A lot of people from up north came down and went to this Montesano to get cured of yellow fever because of the Huntsville was just such a sort of clean and, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Not drug free. They used a lot of drugs back then. Disease free cities, disease free areas in the United States. This building no longer exists. During World War II, this was all copper. They actually stripped all the roofing from this building for the war effort in World War II. And later on, I think it was 1970s or something, the building got eventually demolished. But this was like a resort that people came to get cured of yellow fever. I thought that was quite interesting. And here's a map of, it was up on the hill. And here's a map with the building in the background. And here's a picture of the hotel, which is certainly not straight. There we go. Let's see if we can. Okay, we're going to need to increase the clarity, bring out the picture, increase the contrast, bring down the highlight, and dehaze this, and see if we can get rid of the shadows or the reflections. And we've done a fairly good job at getting rid of reflections. There's still, you can still see some things, but not a bad job. So we'll increase shadows a bit, put a little bit of colour in, back into it. It's a watercolour, as you can see. And probably increase exposure just a tad, and there we go. The hotel at Montesano. Sano, I think that's how you pronounced it, Montesano. This is on the second floor. Another fireplace with some actual photographs from Camp Wheeler, which is just west of Huntsville, which was a Civil War camp. And here's the soldiers in Huntsville. If you notice here, this is the Northern soldiers, that's an American flag. Trainmaster's uniform and some documents. This was a safe. This building had two safes. The front of this door looks like wood, but this door is actually concrete and weighs an absolute ton. Which is why they used it as a safe door. It makes your belongings safe. The brickwork inside is all original. This wooden floor just outside of it is original. The carpet's not. The carpet is a new carpet. This just used to be not carpeted, it was all wood. There we go, about there. And you can see in the background, I don't know if that came out very well. Oh, it did come out. Confederate money. So that worked, just like that. And there you go, Confederate money. Book on engineering. This staircase got cut out back in the early 1900s, and then they put a false ceiling in here so that you couldn't get up to the second and third floors, or at least the public couldn't get up to the second and third floors. There was a back way, kind of like a fire exit, that the employees could get up. But if you walked in, it's just a real passenger, whatever, you would see a 3-story building, but no way to get up to the top 2 stories. That was kind of interesting. This is an original Pullman bell, and it's out of focus. Let's see if this one's in focus. There we go, this one's in focus. Each train, it's not inspector, what do you call the people that are on the trains? I suppose engineers. I'm going to straighten it up a bit. Each one had their own train and their own whistle, or their own bell. And when they retired, the rail company gave them the bell as a memento. Each bell was handcrafted and had its own unique sound, and from what we got told anyway, you could tell who was coming down the line just by the sound of the bell and the way that the person rang that bell. You could pick out who the engineer on the train was. It's fairly interesting. Next up we have a water fountain. This is the original water fountain that came with the building. The water bubbled up here that you could take a sip of, whatever, but then it also had this spigot here, and it had something to do with chewing tobacco, and if you got chewing tobacco in your beard, you used this one to take a drink of so that you weren't getting it in your beard with the water that bubbles up here. This is a reproduction sign, and a spittoon. So here's the ticket master's office. If you wanted to go on a railway journey somewhere, this is the person that you spoke to and bought your tickets from. You could also order items from the catalogue from this person as well. You ordered items from the catalogue, you paid it up, you paid this person, he wired the money forward to, I don't think it was Sears, but essentially the old version of Sears. Once you were paid up, they would ship the goods here. This person would then notify you that your bed, say, was here ready to pick up. Morse code, wire, old boiler. This is not, I don't think this was the original equipment from the building. I think this is all replicas. I like this one, but it doesn't, that wall looks straight, but this, anyway, we'll go with this one. I like this one. There we go. Now we're getting some life into it. Probably a smidge more in the shadows and still a smidge less in the highlights. There we go. This is supposed to be an actual engineer on the trains. Old telephone system, they preferred wire over telephone because wires didn't get confused. There's my first picture of it. Then I realised I was still way up at ISO 3200. Took it down to ISO 200 and a much better picture. It's not all blown out. So this is where we entered, second floor, third floor. The awning, or the observatory as they called it, where you could actually go and watch trains pass. If you didn't have a lot things to do, people apparently came, hung out here and just watched for trains, although there wasn't that many trains that actually came through. See if we can bring out the sky a tad. Okay. There we go. We got a nice picture at the front of. And this is more just of the awning. A side view on of the train depot. We're still at ISO 200. It was a storm. I can remember it being a stormy day. It did rain, but in between the rain it was bright and very hot. It was in the 90s. I can remember sweating and hoping that I wasn't getting my sweat on the lens of the camera and smudging. Yeah, so that looks good. We need to dehaze this just a touch more and bring in the sky just a little bit more. One of the old four-wheel pulley cart things. An old steam engine, and this actually used to run. This was a proper old steam engine. Now we bring down exposure, but we bring up the shadows. See what happened? We've now got details in the wheels when we bring up the shadows like that. But you look at your histogram and you see that we're still clipping and still slightly overexposed. So bring down the highlights, bring down the whites a tad, bring in the clarity, add a smidge of colour to it. And then we'll dehaze this and it should bring in the sky a bit. There you go. We're getting blue here, we're getting greens, and we've now got a decent picture. And this is what the engine, the boiler, I suppose, looks like from this train. And this is where they used to keep the coal. An old passenger. No, this wasn't a passenger car. No seats inside. Or if it was a passenger car, they ripped the seats out. It was a passenger car. There you go. That's why I take pictures like that. It's not so much good for this Pullman company in 1909. It's not so much good for posting on websites. You don't take these as sort of good pictures. It's more for my information. Now this I found extremely interesting. A Patriots mosaic. This is Veterans of 2016, and these are all individual pictures, but when you step back you have an eagle with the American flag. This is very, very well done. I love this. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that this is straight. You can buy prints of this. I thought we'd have said it on there. I did see somewhere where you can actually buy posters of this and prints of it. Dehaze that a touch, bring in the colours. Bump up the clarity a bit and bump up the shadows. Really don't need to do much with this. Look at the histogram. We're actually really well laid out here. Same thing, just portrait. And here's another one. I prefer this one. Soldier fronting a American flag with the soldier and the battlefield cross. And again, this is 2015, so this was the year before. This is all individual pictures of vets. Very well done. The artist who came up with this, designed it and actually done it. It's an excellent piece of, I like it. I think it's superb. There we go. Nothing. Hit overwrite. And we're going to wrap it up there. That's the end of the pictures taken in the train depot. I hope you enjoyed that. We ended on a high, or a patriotic high anyway. I hope you learned something, and we'll see you in the next editing session.